Okay, now, here's what we're going to do today. Let me just remind myself of what it is we're going to do today. We're going to go back to our coloring books, and I'm going to show you a model again that basically it's the one thing that I do that everybody remembers. It's amazing. You know, I was speaking to a plenary session at a stewardship conference here several years ago now, and I was kind of like the plenary speaker, and there were just like a lot of people there, and so I'm kind of doing my thing. And after the event is over, people come wandering up just to say hi. A lot of people that I've had the opportunity of working with over the years, and so as I was chatting with one of them, he looked at me and he said, "Jerry," he says, "I heard you speak 25 years ago." I said, "So really?" I says, "Do you remember a thing that I said?" And he says, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do." And he took out a sheet of paper that he'd worked on, obviously during my presentation. He took out a sheet of paper and he handed it to me. He says, "That changed my life. When I understood that, everything changed." So I'm going to share that with you right now, and I believe you will always remember it. It just is something that you don't forget. And it's just a little diagram that I created as I was kind of thinking through it in my mind. How do I explain this in ways that people are going to understand it? Now, before I actually show it to you, and I'll give you the page to look on it, you can find it pretty quickly. But before I get into it, I want to remind you of something that I think I've already referred to earlier, but it becomes particularly relevant as we move into this discussion. And that is that there are two assumptions that we make in ministry, and most of them, in fact, both of them are wrong. And we consistently make these mistakes day after day after day after day. You do it every day, I do it every day in one form or another. We all kind of make these same mistakes. The first mistake that we make is, as we've pointed out earlier, is that everybody gets it. That when you say something that's really important about your organization, you tell people, like this is what it is we do, and isn't this like really, really cool? You just assume that they get it, that they really do understand what it is you just told them. And you walk away oftentimes realizing that, well, I've said that, so I don't need to say that again because they got it. I told them that already, so I don't need to repeat it. Well, I always tell people, as I think I probably told you, that if you believe that, you've never had a teenager live in your house, because teenagers don't get it. I mean, you teach them, you sit and talk to them, you read books about what it is that they shouldn't do, you kind of remind them, pound them over the head with it, and then all of a sudden they do something that they know you shouldn't do. And you confront them, and they look at you with deer in the headlight lights looks and say, "Oh, Dad, that is really profound." And you say, "Well, I've only told you it about 1,700 times." Really? I mean, they just don't seem to get it. And a lot of the people that you talk to about your organization, a lot of the people that you're wanting to share what it is that you do, you kind of share it over and over again. You send it in newsletters, you send it in communications verbally that occur from platforms and churches and in community clubs and social media and all the other ways in which we try to communicate. You kind of do all that, and you just kind of assume they got it. They really do have it. They really do understand what we do, and I can assure you that most of them don't get it. But if they do get it, let's just assume that a few people do get it. The other assumption that you can't make, that we oftentimes do, that they are going to expend the energy to try to figure out how to deal with it. In other words, it's one thing to know about something, but it's an entirely different process to try to take what it is that you just told me and try to figure out its relevance to me. In other words, you just told me about a problem of orphans in Hungary. Well, I kind of get that. And that's really too bad, and that's sad, and we probably should do something about it. And you would you would nod your head and say, yeah, that's kind of like why we're here. And so you would expect that when they get in the car let's say a husband and wife come to an event where they basically have heard, the fact that we have orphans that basically are not being cared for in our country, and they both are moved perhaps to tears in a presentation that shows videos and shows impact and outcomes and the ways that we would hope that they would remember them. And you would hope that when this man and his wife get in their car, that this conversation that I'm about to relate is taking place. Husband to wife. What a great night. I mean, that was just, really, I'm, not normally touched emotionally about something, but that was very, very emotional. And I think you, dear, and I need to do something about this. And so what I would like to do, I know a lot of people that are concerned about these kinds of things. And what I would really like to do is let's just invite some of those people over to our house, and let's invite someone from the organization to come in and just kind of talk to us about this, because this is like, far too important for us to ignore. And his wife says, oh yeah, you're right, sweetheart, that is absolutely true, and we could do that. And we could invite people over to our house as well, just for a meal, and kind of share that. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to just come up with a 31-day prayer guide just for you and me. Let's just think, through 31 prayer requests that we could come through, each day of the month, and we'll just put it on the refrigerator door. And you and I, why don't we just every morning when we just commit to the Lord and commit to one another, that every morning when we see that, we're just going to pray through, the needs of this incredible, wonderful organization that's doing such an incredible job in really impacting orphans. And he says, well, that is a great idea. And I've got another one. You realize there are piles of businesses that I'm associated with because I'm a pretty successful businessman, and a lot of people that were there are members of congregations of churches, and certainly churches should be involved in orphans. Isn't there a verse somewhere in James or somewhere that talks about orphans and that kind of thing, widows and that? Oh, Jesus, yes, it's the last chapter of the book of James. No, it's the first chapter of the book of James. It's those last verses, and he says, well, why don't we, honey, I'm going to be our ambassador for the sponsorship group for orphans in my company. And I know Bill over there at another company, I'm going to say, you need to get somebody that's going to be an ambassador for you for this particular project, because your company needs to be involved. And I'm going to help Bill, it says, and you're to recruit 3 others, and I'm going to go recruit 2 more. And so, Bill, you need to do that, and I'm going to do that. And we're going to have ambassadors in every business in the country of Hungary. We're going to have ambassadors in every church in Hungary. We're going to just do that. Put your hands back on the wheel there. Oh, okay, yes, we are driving, aren't we? And so we're driving down the road, and she says, that is great. And she starts bouncing in the seat. She says, I got another idea. And we're just sharing ideas back and forth, and these are all the things we're going to do. If you believe that's going to happen, you're more insane than I am. It isn't going to happen. It isn't going to happen. And so those are huge mistakes that we make, and we consistently make year after year after year after year, and we wonder why we're not making any progress. Now, okay, isn't that a great illustration? A great introduction. Now I have nothing else to say. Now, okay, let's go to this picture in your coloring book. I'm going to write a development coloring book. Okay, this is a great illustration, and I'm going to kind of repeat it, just kind of keep it. You're going to kind of see me develop it as it happens here. But the first thing in the diagram that I want you to see is what I call the sea of prospects. I kind of grew up around the ocean, and my grandfather, as I told you earlier, was a lobsterman. And lobstermen in Maine fish close to shore in the summertime because the lobster come in from deeper waters, because they shed their shells every year and they hide among the rocks. And so the lobstermen, in the summertime, fish close to shore where it's not nearly as rough and dangerous. In the wintertime, the lobsters decide, well, we need to go out, out deeper. And so they'll go out about 3 or 4 miles out, and they go out and fish. But out there, 5 or 6 miles out, it's much rougher. Your danger of losing your lobster traps is very, very high, and it's just kind of downright dangerous. And so a lot of lobstermen who make their money from lobstering don't go out there in the wintertime. I asked my grandfather once, I said, why don't you go out there? And he says, well, first of all, I don't like it out there. And secondly, everything I put out there, I lose. All the traps that I put in the water are now in Spain. And he says, I can't afford to have all of my lobster traps in Spain because I can't afford to go back and get them. So he says, I just don't do that. So what he would do is he would get in a trawler with a bunch of other fishermen, a large fishing boat, and they'd go out to George's Bank, which is off the coast of Massachusetts, and they would fish. And they'd be there for like a week or two. And while they're catching fish, and they're putting them in the hole of the boat, and putting them in the hole of the boat, till the boat's full, and then they bring them back. Now somehow, miraculously, my grandmother always knew when my grandfather was coming back. And I have no clue how she knew. I think I can probably guess. They didn't have radios. I mean, it was like before, fishermen had radios in their boat. But there were a lot of fishing boats from the same harbor that would go out there. And so my guess is that my grandfather or someone would yell across to somebody else and say, tell Mildred I'm going to be home on Friday afternoon. Well, whatever the case might be, Mildred would call me. My grandmother would call me, and she says, Jerry, your grandpa's coming back, and he's coming back tomorrow, Friday afternoon. So I would run down to the pier, and I'd stand there, and I'd wait, and there was a lighthouse, and I could hear the boat chugging along, coming around the lighthouse and coming into the pier, and I knew it was the boat that my grandfather was on, and they'd kind of come up next to the pier, and the next thing they would do is they'd open up this hole, and you have never seen so many fish. I mean, it is like, wow. And I can remember my grandfather telling me these stories. He says, you can't even begin to comprehend how many fish are out there. Because out there is a ship. In fact, there are 5 ships. There's one from Romania, there's one from, and they tell me from where all these ships would come from, and they were actually canning factories. And there were fishermen out catching fish. They'd take them to the mothership. They'd can them and prepare them and pack them away. And when they got full, they'd head back to Romania or wherever they came from. And another ship would come back and take its place. And it goes on day after day after day after day, year after year after year after year. And I just couldn't comprehend that. I mean, that was just beyond my ability. When I saw what it is that they had, I couldn't even begin to imagine, the magnitude in which it was being played out in a variety of other areas. Well, the point that I'm making is that in the sea of prospects is every resource you will ever need in order to be able to accomplish what it is that God's placed in your heart. I'm just here to tell you that the sea is not deficient of resources. It's not deficient of resources. God supplies what He calls us to do. He provides what it is He asks us to do. And in the sea of resources, everything that we need, everything we need is there, and it's there in abundance. All the clients that we need are in the sea of prospects. All the prayer partners that we need are in the sea of prospects. All the donors that we need are in the sea of prospects. All the volunteers that we'll need are in the sea of prospects. All the church reps that we need are in the sea of prospects. They're all there, everywhere, and they're there in abundance. I mean, you can't even begin to understand how many there are, that might come alongside and partner with you in enabling you to fulfill the vision to which God's called you. Now, in the middle of the Sea of Prospects, there's an island. And on the island, there's this beautiful house. It's got a front door, it's got a front porch. It's just a beautiful house. And that house, think of that house as you're looking at it, that is your ministry. That's your organization. That's the need for dealing with the crises that you deal with in the context of what it is that you've been called of God to do. This is the pregnancy care center. It's the orphanage. It's the whatever. It's the church. It's the small group. It's the IFES cell. I mean, this represents your organization. And the reason that you're here today is because you live in this house. You live in this house and you realize the transformation that takes place. You know, I tease Vesna, but Vesna is actually one of my favorite people on the planet because I've known Vesna now for 12 years or so. And she's still doing it. She's still hanging in there. She's still doing ministry. She's still working with young ladies experiencing a crisis pregnancy. She loves them. She shows me pictures of her children, her babies, yesterday in a book. And I'm saying, you know, this gal is incredible. She just kind of endures. And she's persistent. And I know it's not been easy. I know there's been a lot of times when I say, you know, why in the world would anybody submit themselves to this? Because this is like impossible. But despite the fact, she's still there. And why is she still there? Why are you still there in areas where you've been serving for years and years? And it's because you know what happens in here. And what it is that happens in here is worth repeating over and over and over again because there's more at stake than my comfort. What's at stake is issues relating to the kingdom of God. And so you just persist and you just persist and you endure in the face of pain, in the face of deficiency. It's kind of the rugged part in between, isn't it? There was a period of time in Sue's and my life, and it's actually been several of these periods, interestingly enough, when you have your own organization, you're kind of responsible for a lot of people, and you know, first of all, you're the last person to get paid, and if there's no money, then you don't get paid, and we've just been through that so many times that, you know, it's like, oh boy. and we just, you know, but we persist. And it's not because we're great. It's not because we just know this is what God wants us to do. And if God's going to provide for us, there's something to be learned here in the midst of this challenge. And actually, you know, and I suspect that you would probably say the same thing. And I might like to ask you, but I won't embarrass you to do that. But if you want to offer, you can certainly do that. But if you were to go to my wife, Sue, and you would say, when were some of the most intimate, growing times in our relationship, I will guarantee you she will share some of those really, really hard times. Because in those hard times, we just kind of bound together. I remember her looking at me one day, and we were in the midst of some of this, and she says, you have to understand, Jerry, that we're not the enemy. And we're, you know, God's placed us, I'm glad that I'm so wonderfully blessed that I have a godly wife. She says, God's placed us in this reason for a purpose, and we're going to live it out, and we're going to be stronger as a result of it, but we're not going to give up. And I just really want to encourage you to do that because there's going to be some bad times. It's going to be difficult sometimes, and that's the trial part that brings us to a deeper understanding and produces incredible qualities in us that will last forever. So anyway, we know what happens here, and that's why we're here. But half the people in the Sea of Prospects, and probably 99% of the people in the Sea of Prospects, don't have a clue who you are. They don't know who you are. Some of them kind of think they know who you are, and they may have seen a sign somewhere and just kind of passed it and said, oh, yeah, I think I've seen a sign about this organization. So they kind of know that it's there. And there's other people that yeah, I know that's there, but I know what it is. It's an abortion clinic. And here's what? But that's their perception. Someone told them this is a place where really bad things happen, when really this is where the power of God is manifest in ways that you can't believe. But they just don't get it. They don't understand it, and they've never taken the energy to try to figure it out. And so that's the problem. And so the first thing that we must do in order to be able to reap, you know, the resources that are in the Sea of Prospects is to bring people from the Sea of Prospects and stand them right here in front of the on the front porch in front of the house. Now, there's all kinds of ways you can do that, and you need to think about them. You need to think about things that you could do to bring people to the front porch. And what I mean by the front porch, I mean figuratively, you bring people to the front porch when you're standing in front of a congregation and you're talking about your ministry. What you're doing is you're opening the door, you're letting them peek in. They can't get all the perspective of what's inside the house, but when you open the door, they can see something. They can see that you care for people. They can see that this is what it is that you do and this is how you do it. And you might validate that by videos and testimonies and all the kinds of things that we do to let people know this is what we do. This is what happens here. This is the nature of what it is that God's called us to do. And however you choose to say it, we can constantly do things that bring people to the front porch. We can bring them to our organization. We can go to their organization. We can do YouTube videos and put them on social media where people can catch a little glimpse, a little 2-minute snippet of something that goes on into our organization to give we're kind of taking them in and showing them a little bit of what happens in the context of our organization. But we have to have people that don't know anything about us, and we need to bring them to a point where they can be exposed to what it is that we do. And you're doing it all the time. Whenever you sit down and talk to somebody over the lunch table, over a cup of coffee, whenever you're sitting there, you can kind of open the door and say, let me just share a little bit what happened just this day or this week in the context of our ministry. Just continue to talk to people about it and let them know. And when you do that, essentially what you're doing is you're exposing them. You're opening the door and they're peeking in and they're saying, wow, this is pretty interesting. But you know what we do? As soon as the event is over, we close the door and we say, thank you for coming. God bless you. Good night. And all those people that were standing on the front porch, kind of walk back down into the sea of prospects. And development, as it's being done among most organizations in the world today, is a series of up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, continually. And it's taking place for literally years. And they're no better off developmentally 10 years from now than them, for all practical purposes, than when they started 10 years ago. So something is seriously wrong, but it's certainly an important issue. The next step in the process, which is number 2, is extending an invitation. So we're going to call this an invite. And an invite is something to which somebody has to say yes or no to. Yes or no. You see, yes and no are both rational decisions. Would you like to come in? No? Okay. See, that's a rational decision. You have forced me to make a choice. You have forced me to say yes or no. And every decision that we make, whether it be yes or no, basically begins to create the map about how we're going to relate to that particular thing to which we said yes or no to. The more we say no, the more convinced we are that this is not worthy of our consideration, and so forth. Opposite than that. And the more I say yes, the more committed I become to what it is that I said yes to. But yes or no is in response to an invitation. In my world, I use another word, and I call it bridging. And bridging simply means that between the front porch right here and the foyer inside, you'll notice that there's always a threshold, something that you have to step over to get in, right? Just a little threshold that separates the front porch from the foyer. So I call that a bridge. The bridge is getting us further down the road. One of the things that I've tried to emphasize over and over again in the context of our time together is the fact that relationships are a journey. They're not a destination. They're a journey. We're constantly moving forward in a relationship. And the moment they stop, they stagnate. And so we're constantly moving forward. And a bridge, along the way, there are bridges. There are things that move us to another level and so forth and so on. And I'm going to make a statement now, and I'm going to validate it later, but I don't think I need to validate it. But the greatest mistake we make in development is the failure to bridge. It's the failure to bridge. I mean, we bring people to the front porch and we say, hey, thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Take home a brochure or two, and God bless you and good night, and nothing ever happens, despite the fact that it might have been the greatest production ever, in terms of your presentation and delivery of the message and the uniqueness of your organization. But they walk away and they never get involved, and our conclusion is they don't care. And that's not even fair. That's not fair to say they don't care because they don't do something. It's wrong that you didn't provide them the opportunity to do something. And that's what the bridges provide. Now, just hold the thought for a moment, because I'm going to give you some examples of bridges. And when I think you see the examples, it's all going to come together for you. The next, and it's not a step, but the next movement here, number 3, is what I call conversion. And conversion is a percentage. Okay, so it's a percentage here. And basically what you're measuring, let's say I go to a church or I go to a service club. You know, a lot of organizations have service clubs that do things where people in the community come together and they do things for the community, so they have a club to do that. We have what we call Rotary Club in America. You may have some of those in your communities or whatever. But let's say that I come to the Rotary Club and there are 100 people that are members that hear me speak. Okay, so there's 100 people there and I'm talking about our organization and so forth and so on. And then at the end of the session, I extend some bridges. And 50% of the people that were there, or 50, said yes to my invitation to come in. Then in that particular example, I had a 50% conversion rate, okay? A 50% conversion rate. 50% of the people that were there responded or said yes to an opportunity that I provided them. Okay, now just kind of hold all those thoughts and let me help you bring it together. Sue, and you've heard me talk so much about Sue because I just love her so much, but she's quite an incredible lady. And one of the things that she's accused me of, one of the things that she's accused me of over the years, she says, you know what your problem is, Jerry? Now, she's got a PhD in psychology, so she has a right to, be able to at least analyze what my problem is. And she says, you know what your problem is? And I said, what's my problem, honey? And she says, you just live in your own world. I says, yeah. Says, honey, it's just a great world. You got to come in sometime. I mean, this is like the best world ever. I mean, this is Jerry's world. And my kids, as they were growing up, they called it Dad's world. And they'd bring their friends over to our house and they say, don't pay any attention to my dad. He just kind of like lives in his own world. And he'll oftentimes be gone when he's really there. And that's Sue's biggest complaint, Jerry, come out of your world just a second. I need to talk to you about something in my world. And so we have this little conversation going on. But let me tell you something about Jerry's world. In Jerry's world, Jerry has never, ever, 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 ever expected anybody to say no to him. I've just never expected anybody to say no to me. And you're sitting there saying, well, have anybody ever said no to you? And I said, oh yeah, lots of people have said no to me. Now you'd think, given my fears and my sense of fear of rejection or whatever that I talked to you about yesterday, you'd think that that would bother me. But if you were to say, well, how do you deal with that then, big guy? And I would say, well, I just didn't give them enough opportunities to say yes. Because who would want to say no to Jerry? But the point is really, it's a silly example. But that's a point that I really want you to hang on to for just a moment. Now, I'm going to do a little role playing here, okay? You're all Rotarians right now. Now, a Rotarian, just in case you don't know what you are, you're a member of my club, my Rotarian club, and we are a community service club. What we exist to do is to provide services to our community. And I just spoke, or I'm speaking at your club right now. And so I have just come, I've talked a little bit about maybe 15 minutes about, my organization, I talked a little, not too much. I've kind of included a couple of quote unquote testimonies of some of our clients. And we showed a little 3-minute or a 5-minute video, to basically conclude my presentation, and that just turned off, and now I'm getting up from my seat to give the conclusion. Okay, hey, thanks so much for being here at the Rotary Club today. It's really great to have you here. And it was wonderful, and I really appreciate the fact that you have the passion here as a group to really do things in the community to make a difference. And you've heard a little bit about what it is we're doing, and I can just assure you that my organization is making a difference. And we are impacting the lives of a lot of people in our community that are facing some very, very unique challenges. And you've seen the result of some of that. You've seen some of the process in the video. You've heard some of the stories of people that have been working with us and whose lives have been impacted as a result of our involvement. And many of you, I know, on the basis of the expressions of your face as I was watching you as these stories were being told, I know many of you were really touched by it. But I would like to share with you, when I came in this morning, I provided a brochure, and I'd like you to pick up that brochure right now. It's in front of you on the table. It's a little trifold brochure, and it tells a little bit about our organization. I want you to take a look at that. And then on the back of it, it has a little section that's perforated, and I'd like you to tear off that if you would for a moment. Just kind of tear it off. And I want to share with you 5 or 6 ways that you could be involved in our organization. I know oftentimes when I speak around the city about this, and people just get so moved by what it is that we do, and many of them will say, well, how can I be involved, or can I be involved, or is there a place for me to be involved in an organization like this? And let me just tell you, there is, and we would love to have you engaged with us as partners in helping us to move forward this incredible mission to which we've committed ourselves. So if you'll just kind of take a look at that, just flip it over on the last. I've got about 7 things, and there's a little bulleted items that have a little box in them. But the first one that I'd like to just share with you is that, if you are impressed about what it is we're doing, and you're saying this is really a need that needs to be addressed in the context of our community, then to us, you are a very, very important person. And as a leader in this community, as a member of this club, you're just a VIP, and so we have what we call a VIP newsletter. And now don't get scared about that, because it only comes once a month, and it's very, very short. It usually has some pictures and diagrams and so forth, but it just kind of keeps you updated on what it is that's happening in our area of the world where we're providing a service. And so it's going to be pictures, it's going to be diagrams, charts, and a little bit of narrative. It's something that you can look at and be done looking at it in about 40 seconds, because we've timed our people to basically look at it, to analyze it, and then tell us what it was like, and we time them. So it's not going to take a long time for you to do that. And we'll only send it once a month. We promise you we'll not send it any more than that, nor will we give your email address to anybody. But if you would like to be a part and be able to be knowledgeable of what it is we're doing so that you can discuss it with other people who may have questions, then we would like you to be one of our VIP newsletter recipients. So all you need to do is just check the box, and you can put in your email address, and we'll make sure you get that. And I promise you we're not going to abuse you in any way. A second thing that you might want to do is we do have a printed newsletter. If you'd like to get that, again, it's free. It comes out quarterly. And what's really powerful about this newsletter, and we've given you a copy as you leave of our last month's issue, or our last quarter's issue. But it anecdotally tells the stories of people who've been impacted by what it is we do. And stories are great. You can tell me, I can tell you facts, but when you see the stories, as you've heard the stories from some of these people that were with us today, it just becomes so impactful and such a wonderful reminder of the fact that difference is occurring in our city in the areas where we provide our services. So if you'd like to receive our free newsletter, just check out that, and we'll make sure that you get it. As a third thing, we think more people in the community need to know what we're doing, and so what we're having is we have what we call an ambassador program. And let me just tell you what the ambassador program is, just real briefly. We're looking for a representative in every church in the city, and we're looking for a representative in every business in the city who basically will have brochures available and be available to communicate with people in the church and or in the business, any questions that they might have as it relates to things that we may be doing. We want them to know that this service is available, that it's provided for you, and if you want to use it, great. If you don't, we understand, but the realities are they need to know about it. And so we have these brochures, and if you'd like to be an ambassador, it's a kind of an informal relationship, but we'll make sure you get materials that you can distribute to people as it may be needed in the workplace or in the church where you worship. A fourth thing that we do is we have a corporate partnership program. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our corporate partnership program. We want every business in the community to be a part of what it is we're doing. And so every year we have a special thrust and it's going to be coming up actually in November, so it just got a few months to, but in November we just approach all of the businesses, and large and small, corporations, big and little tiny mom and pops, and we just go to them and we say, we want you to be a part of our corporate partnership or our business partnership program. And basically all we're asking them for is $25 a year. So it's not like a really big commitment. And what we do right before, just at December 1st, every December 1st, we buy a full page ad in the local newspaper, and we just list all of our corporate partners in alphabetical order, thanking them for their participation in what it is that, and enabling us to do what it is that we do. We want to give you recognition for what it is that you've committed yourself to do, and it's just a wonderful way to be able to say thank you, and a wonderful way in which you can be involved in a meaningful way in what it is we're doing. And we also, and I could go through and give about 4 more, but you notice what I've done is I have given at least one thing or more. The problem with offering one alternative is you have a 50-50 chance that people are going to reject you. I want them to be involved, and I don't care what it takes to get them into the front door, because once I get them into the front door, then I can begin building a relationship with them. But I can't do it from the front porch, between the foyer and the front porch. We need to get them into the front door. So a bridge is designed to move people from the front porch into the foyer. Now there's a couple of things that you need to remember. One is, whenever you present bridges, present a multiplicity of bridges. In other words, more than one. I would recommend at least 6, and you can think of your own. I mean, and literally, the longer you do this, the more you will discover that bridging is an art. It really is an art. And you want to bridge, hear me, you want to bridge everything. Everything. You're going out to lunch with somebody and talking about your organization, you want to provide some bridges. Bridges keep the momentum going. It doesn't stop the relationship, it only grows the relationship. So you're constantly wanting to move people forward on this continuum of understanding in terms of who it is we are and what it is that we do. So you constantly need to bridge. Whenever you make a presentation, whenever you preach a sermon, whenever you write an article, whenever you talk to people, you're constantly bridging, moving them down the road closer to the destination of what it is that we've committed ourselves to do as an organization. So you're constantly bridging. You never stop bridging. You're always bridging. Now, so you want to have a multiplicity of bridges, and you want to keep the threshold low. In other words, if I came to the same meeting and said, you're a bunch of business guys, and we probably, you don't know about what it is we're doing, but we're asking you all to make a commitment of $10,000 to support our organization this year. I mean, what do you think the conversion rate's going to be on that? I mean, it's going to probably be 0, because what you've done is you've created a threshold that you need a pole vault to get over. You want them not to trip coming in. You want them to come in, and you want them to be a part of the family. Essentially, what we're doing is we're asking people to partner. What do we need more than donors? Partners. We want people to partner with us. And think of creative ways in which people could partner. The more people that are quote-unquote involved in your organization, the stronger your organization will be. For remember, the middle name of cultivation is involvement. A-I-D. And as people become involved, they take ownership. And as they take ownership, they participate. And as they participate, they become even more committed partners. And then somewhere along the line, they're going to make some sacrifices on your part, because partners always donate. They always contribute more than what you would ever expect for them to do. And as a result of that, your ministry will grow. So, in response to the 2 assumptions that we make in ministry, both of which are wrong, one is they don't get it. Well, many of them won't. And the other one is that they're not going to expend the energy to try to figure out how to deal with it. Essentially, what you're doing is you're expending the energy on their behalf to do what it is that you know is going to be productive in moving your ministry forward. So you're expending the energy, not them, because they will not do it. I'm just here to tell you that they are not going to expend the energy to try to figure out how to help you. They just are not going to do it. Not going to happen. And this tool really has helped an awful lot of people. because it kind of puts it together. Needs, potential, introduction, engagement. And you may have me call you, or you may call me someday on the phone. I hope that you will. I'm going to give you all my phone number and email address and address. So if you're in the U.S., you're going to all come see me, and that'd be great. Sue and I would love to have you and host you into our home and just love on you and introduce you to some of our friends and so forth. So we just really want you to come be a part of this. I have said this to every class I have ever taught at the European Leadership Forum, and many people have come. And you know something? We are absolutely elated. So please, I want to be a part of your life. And you may say, well, I really don't want you to be a part of my life, Jerry. Thank you very much. But we really would like to be a part of your life. But we have shared this with people, and many people have been really impacted by it. But I had a lady come to a seminar just like this a number of years ago, and I told the people that I'm going to tell you the way this is going to change your life, because it kind of will. You're always going to be looking for it now. You will always look for the bridge. And you're going to hear a pastor preach a sermon, and you're going to keep, okay, where's the bridge? Need the bridge, need the bridge. I mean, don't just talk to me about holiness. Talk to me about the relevance of holiness to my life now. I need to know that now. That's the bridge, and you miss the bridge. And you're going to be looking for it, and it's going to start frustrating you because they didn't bridge. Oh. Well, anyway, this lady goes to church one Sunday morning. She left on Friday. This is Sunday morning. All right, 2 days later, she leaves our seminar. Sunday morning, she's with her husband and her family, and she's going to church. She's sitting in the front row of the church, and there's a missionary there, someone like you, and really, really passionate about what it is that they do. And they give this incredible, just this unbelievable message on serving God and trusting God and being engaged in God's work and telling them about their field and their opportunities and the things that God is doing. And she's just like so excited about this. And after the meeting is over, the pastor says, we so are grateful for this person coming to our church today. Thank you for coming, brother. Thank you for coming, sister. It's been absolutely marvelous. Now, everyone, let's have a word of prayer and be dismissed. And so they have a word of prayer and dismiss. And she gets in the car. Now, she's in the car with her husband. And she's really, I'm talking seriously agitated. And her husband says, well, what's wrong, honey? He says, you will never believe this. I am ready. I am prepared to give my firstborn son to help this guy. Can you believe what it is he's doing? And he never bridged. And her husband never heard the word bridge before. He can't totally understand why his wife is so agitated. And she goes on and on and on and on as to make a point to her husband who's just not getting it. And so finally, her husband hands him his cell phone and says, call Jerry, he cares. So she does call me on the phone. She says, Jerry, you won't believe it happened today. And she's kind of going on and on and on and on. But you'll be looking for it. I can promise you that. You'll be looking for it because it just doesn't happen. And I think most of you say it doesn't happen much in our organization. But shame on you if it doesn't happen after you leave here, because I'm going to make life miserable for all of you. So, and if you call me and say, we had this great meeting. Oh, Jerry, if I get this call from Vesna, I would absolutely come to Serbia just to bawl her out. But she calls me and says, Jerry, we had 300 people at a banquet. It was just absolutely so wonderful. And it was, God really used it. It's like the Spirit of God came down. And I look at it and say, hey, Vesna, that's just really great. I says, what was your conversion rate? Conversion. I know it's a word that's somewhere. Let me get my notes out, Jerry. Conversion. Oh, you mean that's the percentage of the people that were there that responded to my bridge? Yeah, that's it. Oh. We just didn't do that. Lost opportunity. Believe me, lost opportunity, lost opportunity, lost opportunity.